What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Fit to Fat to Fit Experience podcast. It's me, Drew Manning, hanging out with you guys. I'm here flying solo again. I actually don't know where Lynn is at this time. She's not here, though. Sometimes she's here, sometimes she's not. Sometimes you guys just get me, sometimes you get both of us. Hopefully, either way, you'll listen to this episode. We have an awesome guest, Dr. Jeff Spencer. You guys Google him. An amazing guy. I met him at this mindset group in LA a couple weeks ago and was very impressed with what he does. He's 65 years old. He was in the 1972 Olympics as an American cyclist. Such a great story. He was born with great discipline. As a 9-year-old kid, he would wake up at 4:30 a.m. to go practice baseball. His real passion became cycling, though, and at 10 years old, he went on a race with these adults and just killed them. Like he said, it was a 25-mile bike ride. He thought that was the warm-up, and everyone else was done for the day. So he's got an incredible story. He grew up without a dad, which we dive into a little bit. Well, his parents got divorced. His dad left, and he found out 30 years later that his dad was this genius who was a military veteran and ended up dying a homeless man on the streets, even though he was a genius growing up. And so he talks a little bit about that. He talks about his support group, his mentors, high-level Olympic athletes that mentored him and were his support system. And so he's learned from all these great people and has taken, these successful people and how they have achieved this levels of success. And now with advanced degrees in health and wellness, he coaches world-class people, gold medal athletes, from bands like U2 to, Fortune 500 CEOs. So he's got quite the resume, you guys. He definitely knows what he's talking about. He lays out his 10-step blueprint, which is very, 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 very applicable to me, you, everybody that's trying to become healthier, more fit. So definitely get a pencil and paper and write these 10 steps down because they're very, very valuable. Before we jump into today's episode with Dr. Jeff Spencer, though, our show sponsors, who we are very grateful for, because none of this would be possible if we didn't have some type of sponsor to, pay the cost to have this podcast on air. There's a lot that goes into these podcasts, a lot of work, a lot of production. And so we appreciate companies like Everlywell and Quest Nutrition. If you haven't heard me talk about Everlywell, I've mentioned them before in the past. I'm super excited to have them on board as a sponsor of this podcast. One, because I use their services and I was a fan of their services before I decided to work with them. Basically, ever since I did Fit to Fat to Fit, you guys have had blood testing to make sure that what I was doing was optimal for me and to find out where my health markers were. Unfortunately, it's so inconvenient sometimes and expensive and time consuming to make an appointment at a doctor's office to go draw your blood, tell them what markers you want tested. And then, you draw a ton of blood. You have to make an appointment. And then the process of getting your results back is daunting sometimes because it's a lot of information to take in. You don't know how to interpret the numbers and what they mean. Everlywell does such a great job of getting rid of all of that. It's the future of blood testing, you guys. I'm telling you, you go to everlywell.com, pick which test you want to do. So if you want to test your, cholesterol, if you want to test your hormones, if you want to test your sleep levels, if you want to test heavy metals in your body, they have so many different tests you can choose from, all very affordable, super simple. They send you the kit in the mail to your house. It arrives in a couple days. You follow the easy to follow instructions of how to do the test, right? You prick your finger, or sometimes it's a urine sample, and you put it in the prepaid package, drop it off at a UPS store or schedule a UPS to pick it up. And then boom, a couple days later, they email you the results with very easy to read explanations of what those numbers mean, right? So let's say your triglycerides, let's say your estrogen or testosterone is this level. It tells you what the green, yellow, and red version are. So where it should be, what's optimal, what's in the danger zone, and then what's really bad, and why it's that way, and what you can do to fix it, right? It gives you solutions. So it's very simple, very easy to read, very easy to comprehend, no waiting lines, super convenient, very affordable. Like I said, And you can use my discount code fit to fat to fit. Or if you just go to everlywell.com/fit to fat to fit, it's in the show notes, you guys. Go check them out. Start finding out what is optimal for you by getting your blood work tested on a regular basis. Maybe once every couple months, once every 3 months, no later than once every 6 months for sure. But start using everlywell.com. Use their services, you guys. Go check them out. Our next show sponsor is questnutrition.com. I've been a huge fan of Quest since the beginning. Back in the day, they had less than 100,000 followers on Facebook. I remember meeting with them, was blown away by their product. High protein, low carb type of protein bar that actually tastes good and isn't full of sugar. So I've been a fan of them ever since then. Obviously, they came out with protein powders and protein chips, and just have made these amazing food type products that actually taste good and healthier for you, right? Now they've evolved into, the keto industry, which I'm a huge fan of, as you guys know. And they have, keto chocolate bars and keto peanut butter cups and keto frozen meals. And the food is amazing because of the macro profile. So it's very high in fat, moderate protein, low carb. It fits those ratios. They are big proponents of doing testing, right, to see if this type of lifestyle is optimal for some people. And so I'm a really big fan of what they do. And what the bigger picture of what Quest Nutrition is all about. So check them out at questnutrition.com. We're very thankful for their support of our podcast. All right, you guys, let's go and hang out with Dr. Jeff Spencer now. All right, Dr. Jeff Spencer, welcome to the Fit to Fat to Fit Experience podcast. How you doing, man?
Well, listen, thank you so much, Drew, for the invitation.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Just so everybody knows how Dr. Jeff and I met was at a mastermind event just not too long ago. What, like a week ago now?
Yeah, it's actually a week ago Monday.
Yes, a little over a week ago. And it was such a cool event where, I mean, seriously, this room was filled with like amazing people. And Jeff was one of them. And luckily we were able to connect. There was other people there like Jim Quick, Aubrey Marcus, Sean Stevenson, who's the one who put the whole thing on. And if you guys could have been a fly on the wall, it would have been awesome. But we are planning on sharing all the stuff we learned, through our own platforms. But that's where I met Jeff and was instantly connected to his story. And I think he found my story kind of entertaining. Right, Jeff?
Yeah, it's unbelievable, to say the least.
So I had to have him on the podcast. And so anyways, that's how we met. And Jeff, I kind of want to back up and kind of introduce you to my audience a little bit. And when I was reading up on you, one of the first things that stuck out was this statement. And I kind of want you to start there. And it says this: at 9 years old, I woke up at 4:30 a.m. And that right there is where I want to start, because how did that happen? Why? And I think that kind of defines, where you've gotten to. But just start there for me.
well, yeah, my eyes automatically opened up. I kind of have the self-start gene, and I'd go outside in the morning with my little black baseball bat, and I'd take my softball and hit it up and down the street by myself while everybody else was sleeping. And so I just had this physicality about me that anything that involved running, throwing, jumping over things or whatever, I was just there for it. And I was enthralled with the Olympics. I thought that was just an amazing thing. And I always felt that, I think of being an Olympian would be the coolest thing ever. And so that's how it all got started. And I've just had this ability to get up and be self-motivated to get things done. I have a natural curiosity. I like to just sort of explore the possibilities that are out there. And I feel that the world and life is a giant sandbox that wants to be played in. That's how it all got started.
Interesting. So you didn't have a dad or an older brother getting you up or got up that early that you kind of followed suit or was an example for you? You self-started yourself, right?
Yeah, I just got up. I mean, everybody else was sleeping. I was hitting the ball up and down the street under the street lights. Those were my companions. Maybe a possum or two that crossed, but that was about it.
And did anybody else notice this or catch on to it and start wanting to join you, or teammates or friends that were motivated by this? Or was it just you doing this by yourself?
It was just a solo mission. It's like everybody was sleeping, and it didn't occur to me that other people may be interested, actually.
That's so interesting. Okay, so from there, I'm guessing you got into baseball, right? That was your passion as a kid, or was there other passions at that age?
Well, Actually, cycling was the real passion. That was actually the cycling is an interesting story because there was a time where some guys in my neighborhood, which were 7 or 8 years older than myself, developed a recreational interest in cycling, and they had all the best bikes and everything. And they asked me to go for a ride with them one day, and it was a 25-mile ride. And so I went with them on the ride. When we got back, they were all tired, and I wasn't. So there was something like very different about me at that time, and it was really a preview of things to come. So cycling became my sport of choice just because I had an affinity for it. And I had proximity to people that were actually doing it. So that really became my focus. Even though I continued to play baseball and every other sport, the one that I was really intently focused on was competitive cycling. And that was it. That was actually at the age of, it occurred to me at 7, but when I was 10 is when I had my inaugural ride.
Okay, at 10 years old. Wow.
Yeah.
Do you remember what bike you were riding at that age or what bike you had?
Yeah, I do. I still actually have a picture of it. It was a silver Swiss bike. The seat was all the way down. My legs could barely reach the pedals.
Yeah.
And, that didn't occur to me that I couldn't ride it, So it was a surreal experience. And, at the end of the ride, I thought we were just getting warmed up and everybody else was dead. So it was like, what?
Wow. And that's at 10 years old, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
So from there, then where did you grow in the sport from there? I mean, because are there opportunities for 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, teenagers to ride competitively? That's a different world to me, to be honest with you.
Yes, there are categories that do race at that age. And so I began racing when I was like 11. And incidentally, that's the moment where I also decided that I wanted to become an Olympian. I mentioned that earlier, and I always thought being an Olympian would be cool. And so when I made the cycling connection, I realized that the path to the Olympics was going to be cycling. My original inspiration was just to march in the Olympic opening day ceremony parade. So that was an important genesis point. And then when I was 13, I won my first championship. It was like a coronation event that, maybe there is a possibility that I can become an Olympian, and I never thought that I really couldn't. But there was an important moment there when I was 13. It was the last time I saw my dad. My mom and dad got divorced, and he disappeared. And I found out 30 years later that he died homeless on the streets of New York City. So that was another real pivotal moment because I'd always been alone by myself because of my self-startedness, if there is such a word. But, when he left, things changed because then we went on welfare and things changed significantly for me, though my motivation for my aspiration to become an Olympian was still there.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Let's dive into that. If you're comfortable talking about that.
Absolutely. Yeah,
so they got divorced and your dad just up and left. There was no split custody or anything like that?
It never even occurred to me as a possibility. Yeah.
Okay. And then how did you come to find that he ended up becoming homeless? Or did you go back and track the steps of what happened to him after that? You said 30 years later, though.
Yes. Well, I did have a letter from 1967, believe it or not, that had an address where he was staying. And I always felt that, that's the only known link that I have to his whereabouts. And so 30 years later, I went back to New York and I went to the location. Of course, it was an old, broken down tenement apartment building. And so I figured, well, there must be more to it than that. So we went to the city library in New York City on 42nd Street, and I went through the obituaries, and I did find, when he had passed. And so I was eventually able to track him down or where he was laid to rest through the Veterans Administration because he was a military veteran, and he was buried at the tip of Long Island. So I, went out to his burial site there, and I looked down at the plaque and said, well, I guess this is about as far as it goes. I guess it's up to me to, now carry the torch forward. So that was how that thing eventually resolved itself.
Wow, that's so interesting. Very powerful. Sorry, lost my train of thought there because I had two or three questions that I was going to ask, and then
there's actually something
changed.
there's something I could add to this.
Sure, go ahead.
Significant is that my dad was literally a genius as I knew him growing up as a kid. I mean, he was a once in a generation or once in a creation person with his level of design creativity that should command any price for his services. And so that was a really important lesson for me. It's like, okay, what's the math on this? Genius dies homeless. And so I learned something very important there, that the milestones or the assets that we think that are necessary to become extraordinary are, you got to have will, you got to have talent, you got to have technology, and you've got to have technique. And for sure, all of those are important, but it certainly didn't save him. And as a kid observing the Olympics, I saw that people that should have won didn't, and people that on paper shouldn't did. So I knew that there was a lot more to it than just to try hard and achieve whatever you can visualize. I knew that that was not true, and my dad was evidence of that. So that really became part of what inspired me to figure out what it takes to become a consistent, prolific peak performer.
Yeah, man, that's so interesting, because you see someone like your dad who, like you said, is a genius and has all the talent in the world, but that didn't end up, none of that matters, right? If right. There's no, I don't know what his condition was, if he had a condition. I don't know if you know now that you're older, if he had symptoms of PTSD or depression.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was alcoholic, actually.
Okay. Yeah. So the question I was going to ask, it just came to me now, was after he left, did you end up did your mom remarry? Was there a father figure role in your life, or did your mom never remarry, or did you not have that from someone else?
The silver lining to this is that I had people that were non-denominational. They came from the world of sport. They came from business. They came from stage. They came from life itself, that were actually icons in their industries and their disciplines. And they took a liking to me, and what they did, they shared with me every one of the secrets on how they became iconic. So I was really lucky, because then I had at least a governing set of directives that, if I followed, would give me a chance to be able to achieve my ambition of becoming an Olympian. And I followed those really to the T, even at the age of 13 on. Those became the kind of Declaration of Independence that I adhered to rigidly. Interesting.
So you must have had, that sounds like you had an incredible support system, right?
I did.
But you also, at that age, you must have had a lot of discipline too, to be able to put those things into practice, because normal 13-year-old kids are worried about, are other people going to tease them, or they're worried about video games, or, nowadays, social media. How are you able to stay disciplined in a world of chaos and, other teenagers that do typical teenager things, but here you are training for the Olympics?
That's a little bit of an enigma that I don't quite understand myself, but it's like I've always had this ability to be intensely committed without being compulsive, but being really detailed oriented towards outcomes that were relevant to me. And I think for sure the 4 or 5 or 6 mentors that I had shared with me a level of sincerity that made me really feel that it was important for me to honor them and their charity to me by showing up for duty and doing my part. And I've always been like that. And I don't quite understand it, but I don't know where that comes from. But I do know that I wasn't really interested in the things that most people do for fun, which to me wasn't fun. They looked at it like, well, look at the sacrifice. I said, well, I don't feel like I'm sacrificing anything. I'm embracing an opportunity to see what's possible. I think the sacrifice is with you, and not embracing the talents and gifts and opportunities that you have. So I was always a little bit of an oddball, actually.
Gotcha. No, I think, sometimes some people, I don't know if this is the right statement, but some people are born with that type of discipline, and maybe some people aren't. Maybe it can be learned. I don't really know, because I've thought about the same thing, and that's what I was going to lead into this question a little bit later, but it's kind of a perfect timing for it. Is, you help so many people from all different walks of life, right? From Olympic athletes to Fortune 500 CEOs. The same principles kind of apply to each person. My audience is more of, your average mom or dad that, is trying to become healthier. Maybe their goal is weight loss. And it feels like, some people like me, I feel like I've just always had that discipline to exercise and eat healthy when I know I have a goal. Whereas some people, either they don't have the discipline or they don't have the knowledge or the support system or whatever. Do you feel like that same thing applies to people in the health and fitness industry that, want to lose weight, for example? Why do some people succeed and fail at transformations or the weight loss transformation? Some people it sticks with them, some people it doesn't.
I think a lot of that is that the path to the target isn't clear enough. And I think another part of this too is that there's a mechanical side to the goal, but there's also a personal side to the goal. Like, so for example, let's say I want to lose 20 pounds. There's the mechanical side, which is diet, exercise, sleep, and all the other things that are essential that have to get done. But then there's the me side, where I really need to understand my experience being a person going through a structured weight loss program. And I need to understand what my experience is going to be going through that, so I can anticipate and interpret what it is I'm experiencing. Because, there may be points in the journey where I should be struggling. It's really a sign of progress. It's not a sign that I can't do it. But if I don't know that, then I'll talk myself out of it. And so I feel that there's a little bit of a breach there. And I think that if we have a better understanding of where the stall points are predicted and how we identify them and how we move beyond them, goes a long way to not just getting to the target, but maintaining that which we have worked hard for.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's a really good point that you just made there. I kind of want to shift gears and get back to your story a little bit, because
Sure.
I feel like, it kind of lays a roadmap for all of us, and we can really pull some gems and apply these lessons that you've learned into our lives. So speed up a little bit to the Olympics, you making the Olympic team and what your experience was like there. And then from there, I want to transition into how did you start coaching people,
Sure.
So
yeah,
I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, well, when I was, I got an educational opportunity grant to go to the University of Southern California, where I studied sports science. And between my sophomore and junior year, I actually did make the Olympic team, and I did actually march into the stadium. So that was a dream come true for me, but it took 10 years to do it. And I had a plan that I was going to be brave and work hard, not make any excuses. That's how I was going to do it. So I did that for 10 years, and I was able to make the team with the help of others. So, no one wins alone. You've got to have a great team that can help you. That was an important lesson there. And I've always had a side to me that really understands human nature and why people succeed and why people fail. And so when I got my master's degree in sports science, I not only knew what it took to become an Olympic performing athlete, but I also understood the biology behind it. And so a lot of people were interested in that, from business, from sport, from stage, from the performing arts, that wanted to become their own champions in their disciplines. And they knew that, rightly so, that if you want to be a champion in your discipline, that you have to be able to push and you have to be able to sustain. So that was perfectly in line with my knowledge from my master's degree and my experience as an Olympian. And so I became a consultant to those people. I did help athletes win gold medals. I have helped business people get to the top of their game and stay there and become iconic successes with those principles. And with that initial success, which I actually started in 1979, believe it or not, so I'm kind of in my 40th year of this, people ask me a lot about how do I get and stay well, how do I prevent and manage injuries. So I went back to chiropractic school and got my licensure as a primary healthcare provider. And with those three things, I became a Jiffy Lube one-stop shopping center for crafting a structure and a path for people to get from where they are to where they want to go and perform and remain at the top of their game. And so I had a unique perspective because I knew the biology of it. I knew the personal side of it. I knew the experiential side of what it really takes to get to the top. And there are millions of choices that are in front of us to get from where we are to where we want to go. But I just had this unique ability to know exactly what the singular path is for the individual, that one way for them that will get them to where they want to go. So that's how I got into the high performance coaching space that included not only musicians, like I've been with U2, but also sports standouts like Maria Sharapova, et cetera, as well as business people. I've been on Richard Branson's Island with him and a bunch of other entrepreneurs and stuff. So that's kind of how it went from that to really what's now full-time, what I call corner man coaching. It's not just coaching, it's another level of it. And that was the genesis of it. And so recently I have created a program based on that model called the Goal Achievement Roadmap, which is the 10-step model that I have seen that literally every prolific performer in any discipline is followed to be able to achieve their goals in the least time with least effort and generally on the first try. So that's the genesis and summary from there to now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the 10-step roadmap because I remember you briefly talked about it. Can you dive into maybe some of them or maybe touch on all of them if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So what the observation was is that number one, repeat success at anything, and the discipline doesn't matter, it's not an accident. It's a very deliberate actions that are consistently applied. So what I observed is that there's kind of two basic sides to this. There's a preparation side that gets you ready to perform to achieve the goal. So there's a preparation side, and then there's a performance side, two different sides. And the kind of champion's golden rule is you do the homework and the test is easy, meaning that when you prepare well, then the performance is done easily that executes and achieves the goal. And so I observed into being through my experience helping athletes win gold medals and business people make millions and thought leaders move to the next level. I observed that there are 5 different steps that are required to prepare well so that you choose the right goal and you're responsibly prepared to begin pursuing your goal. And you never want to start pursuing your goal unless you're ready. So the 5 steps are, number 1 is to confirm in your preparation that your goal is actually a goal. It's not a wish. It's not a dream, and it's not a vision. You know, goals are very specific that have very specific criteria that make them very precise and unambiguous. And that's the first thing, because when you're clear about your goal and it's detailed enough, then you have focus. And if you have focus, then you're able to direct your attention to executing the steps that have to go right to achieve your goal. Step number 2. You're still in the preparation phase. You still are not pursuing your goal. You have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Step 2 is motive. Why am I doing this? And the why, of course, it needs to be honorable. If we're doing it, for example, to pursue the opportunity, to express our gift, to improve our health, those are all really good motives. And the reason why motive is important is because motive gives us drive. When we understand our why, then we have an internal motivation and a drive to be able to stay in the game long enough to achieve our goal. Step number 3 is called impact, and that's where we need to look at and assess our achieved goals' impact on ourselves, on others, on our culture, on the natural universe, and on our legacy, because we need to make sure that when our goal is achieved, that it has the right impact on everything and everybody. Because when we do understand that and it's in alignment with us, then what that gives us, it gives us purpose. It gives us the ability to get up and do something that's bigger than ourselves when we may not feel like it. And then step number 4, we're still in preparation, is mindset. And when I talk about mindset, I'm not talking about positive thinking. I'm saying, do we understand the war within us, where our human nature, where part of us wants to succeed and wants to make a difference, but part of us is scared and wants to quit and doesn't want to even try. We have a war inside of us, and we have to be willing to fight that battle every day and honorably do the action steps that are necessary to be able to achieve that goal. And we also need to know the challenges that we're going to face en route to achieving our goal so that we're realistic about our ability to be able to encounter and engage and surmount and overcome those challenges. And when we have that mindset, then we have courage. And courage is the ability to get up and show up every day and keep showing up for work and doing the action steps to make our dream come real. Then we have step number 5, which is the last step in preparation. That's called resources. We've got to make sure that we have the right materials. Do we have the space? Do we have the time? Do we have the team? Do we have the financing? Do we have the equipment? And of course, once we've been able to check off the list that we do have that, then we have trust in our preparation because all 5 steps have been completed where we have chosen the right goal and we're appropriately prepared to responsibly start to pursue the goal. So then when we start to pursue the goal, which is the second half, division 2, which is called performance, this is where we have a start procedure where there's a little window in time where we've talked enough and now we need to get started. And this is where we have like an implementation procedure on exactly what we're going to do to begin the process. So let's say I want to lose weight. Okay, well, on the very first day where I actually go to the gym, this is what I got to do. I got to get in the car. I got to have my license. I got to have my shoes. I got to have my towel. I need my sweatband. I need my aminos for afterwards. And so we got to make sure that we do it the first time to actually get the process in motion. And when we do that, then we at least get liftoff on the process. And so then we move into step number 7, which I call the honeymoon. And this is where now we're actually into the process itself. And like with all honeymoons, no matter what the level of goal we are aspiring to, there's going to come a point where you start to stall and your initial enthusiasm starts to fade and start to diminish.
Yep.
And we need, a lot of people say, well, okay, this actually means that it's not the right goal. Maybe I should quit because I lost my motivation. To me, it's like, no, you've hit a very important milestone. It's like the honeymoon's supposed to wear off. And this is a sign that you're actually making progress. Congratulations. So when we have that reality check, then that takes us into step number 8, which is called the daily grind. And this is where, you know what it's like, folks, where you show up every day, you put your time in, you're going to the gym, you're weighing your food, you're showing amazing restraint and discipline, but you're just not seeing the results that you think you deserve from the time and effort that you're putting into it. And then you start to wonder, man, you know what? I'm not getting what I should be getting out of this. Maybe I should just pull the plug on it because I'm about an inch away from doing it. And again, this is a sign that you're really building the critical mass that's necessary to be able to wake up one day and know that you're going to do it. And let me explain. It's like my daily grind when I was aspiring to be an Olympian was 9 years. I spent 9 years working hard, winning, losing, preparing, shadowing, where I was developing an internal grit and a toughness. And I stayed in the game long enough and I didn't quit, where all of a sudden one day I got up and I knew I was going to become an Olympian. I just knew it because I stayed in the game long enough. So when you feel like quitting and you've got the right plan that's been vetted by a third party, stay in the game. One day you're going to get up different. You know you can do it. So then that's step number 9. We got 2 steps to go in our performance before we achieve our goal. And step number 9 is called upgrade. And when you get up with that knowing that you can do it, all of a sudden your life looks different in every aspect. And that's where you need to up-level your team. You need to up-level your equipment. You need to up-level everything that you're doing to be consistent with the new mentality that you have derived from your knowing that will allow you to create a performance that I call the breakout that's in line with achieving your goal. So let's say it's a 20-pound weight loss. So let's say I get up one day and all of a sudden I've lost 4 pounds. Well, you know what? That's a pretty darn good confirmation that what I'm doing is working. So at that point, we move into step number 10 that's called evolve. And all we need to do is keep evolving and applying our program where we're losing a couple of pounds a week. And we stay steady with that. We don't try to rush it. We don't try to pack 10 years of change into 1 week. We don't try to shortcut, but we stay with the proven method. And all of a sudden you wake up one day and you've lost that 20 pounds. And that's the 10th step. So those are the 10 steps of the Goal Achievement Roadmap.
That is awesome, because as you were going through all those 10 steps, I was kind of taking notes here. and just, it's all similar stuff that I've preached, but it's so applicable to every single person with whatever their goal is. Obviously in my mind, as you're saying all these things, I'm thinking, health and fitness and, me trying to help people achieve their goals. And you made it very applicable, like giving some examples. And, I kind of wanted just to touch on some of the ones that I was thinking about here as you were talking about this, because it's so, you guys at home listening to this, you guys need to re-listen to this 10-step, write it down, and start putting specifics into here of what your goals are. So really quick, confirm the goal. Make sure it's a goal, right? So the first thing that came to my mind is a lot of people are like, well, I want to be healthy. Well, yes, that's a goal. What does that mean, right? It's got to be something measurable, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, weight loss is cool, but for me, I like to recommend to people, look, it's not just about weight loss, because there's a million ways to lose weight, but that doesn't mean you're becoming healthier, right? You could starve yourself. So you got to make sure it's something that's measurable, but I think fat loss, getting your body fat percentage tested is a better measure of that. Mm-hmm. And then the why, you touched on this, it's got to be something honorable. And I see this all the time. People are like, well, I want to look good. I want to have a six pack. And okay, that's cool, but there's always a deeper reason behind that. What's the honorable reason? What's your honorable why? Is it you want to be, healthy for your kids? You want to, you want to be around to see your grandkids? There's got to be something deeper than that. Because what I've noticed, Jeff, is that when it comes to health and fitness, if your goal is just to look a certain way, you get burned out of that really quickly. It goes away so quickly.
Totally. So
there's got to be something deeper than that. So you got to find something that's bigger than you. That's got to be your why. And then the impact on others, is you being a healthier person, is that going to impact, your spouse, your kids' lives? And, I feel like if your why is honorable, then it will have an impact on other people. And then the mindset thing, man, I'm so glad you touched on this, Jeff, because the mindset thing is the most important thing, because people go into it with that motivation, the honeymoon phase really high, and then they don't know all the battles they're going to have to confront. And if they know those battles beforehand, they're going to be so much more prepared. Like, okay, I know in a couple weeks, I'm going to be sore. I'm going to be tired. The food might not taste good, or I might be hungrier than normal, or whatever. Your body's adjusting. You have to know that there's going to be, these hard things to come, and your mind has to be right. So I'm so glad that you touched on that. And then, of course, resources. Okay, what are you going to do? Are you going to go to the gym? Are you going to work out outside? Do you need to invest in some dumbbells? Do you need some workout clothes? Supplements, things like that. I think all those things that you touched on are perfectly applicable to my audience. And it seems so simple. I know that it's hard, but I think these 10 things are very, very valuable.
Well, thank you. It's only taken 50 years to figure all this out. So, I wish I knew me when I needed me,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. That's so true, right? You had to go through these 50 years of learning, making mistakes, and if we could only clone ourselves and go back in time. Yeah, but then also on the second half, the performance thing, doing it right, the honeymoon phase, man, this stuff is so important, so valuable. The daily grind, the upgrade, and here's one thing I want kind of to touch on is, even if you're Dr. Jeff Spencer, or even if you're me and you've maybe reached your goals, right? You've made it there. There's still a whole nother level of, like you said, evolving and going through this whole process again and again to maintain this, because life happens, right? There's going to be setbacks that happen, and you're going to need to reteach yourself these 10 steps, I think, multiple times throughout your life in different phases, and maybe you can touch on that, Jeff, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So the way that I do it, like in my program, is that, first off, like when people go through the home study program, or they go through the workshop, the Goal Achievement Roadmap workshop, they learn academically and experientially exactly how to achieve a goal. And so that's really the first rung on the goal achievement ladder. The second rung is that if you've created 4 relatively memorable goals using the goal achievement roadmap itself, then you've kind of got the second rung on the black belt ladder, which is an achiever. Unless you've done it 4 times significantly, you're not an achiever. And if you're an achiever, then the next rung that you can move to is then getting to the top of your game. and then top your game. If you want to go further, then you can become a master. If you want to go further with goal achievement, then you can become a champion. And the final sixth rung on the black belt scale of becoming a goal manifester is to become a full potential player. So it's like a 6-layered process by which you can select the appropriate level that you aspire to, or you can name and figure out where you are and what you need to do to be able to move forward in a structured way that just help people win gold medals. It's helped people, make millions and move to the next level of thought leadership. It's not guessing. There's a structure to being able to achieve your goals. The idea of dreaming big dreams and working hard to close the gap to get from where you are to where you want to go. It's a really good idea, but it hasn't really proven itself to be able to deliver on its promise.
Quick question about the full potential player level.
Yes.
Is there an endpoint to where you as a coach kind of are like, okay, I've taught you how to fish. Now go out and feed yourself for the rest of your life? Or do you feel like there's always going to be steps in the process, no matter what level of athlete or business person there is? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Well, the reality is, hate to break it to everybody, but you really kind of never arrive in a certain sense, because we're always evolving. Our mentalities and the way that we look at the world is always changing. I think all of us have experienced God, I think I should be farther along than I am right now. Why do I feel like I haven't made any progress in my life? Even though I'm 50. And a lot of that is because we do have every decade a different kind of measuring stick that we score ourselves against life's progress by. And we kind of quite never get to the end of that, which actually I think is a good thing, because, those people that have too much generally start to, live lives of mediocrity through excuse making and sniveling about this and sniveling about that. So it's really like the job's never done, and there's always more success to create that honors the privilege of living and honors and says thank you to our friends and our family and our mentors and those people that have helped us.
Yeah. You know what this reminds me of? And I don't know if you have any connection to Michael Phelps, but, kind of what he went through with his, not this past Olympics, but the one before, where he won the 8 gold medals, and then he just kind of was burnt out. Right. And then I don't know if I can't remember what the story was, but maybe he was done with swimming. He's like, I just need to take a break. But you see someone that at the top of the top level, still not happy. Right. I mean, and just feels like, well, I accomplished this. What more is there to life? Like, this didn't bring me happiness. Maybe you have some thoughts on, but then you see him come back and you see him with a new why behind and in these past Olympics, so he has more of a purpose. Maybe you can talk to that, maybe, or if you've thought about that.
Yeah, of course I have. I work with people that share that dilemma. People at the top have got the same challenges that we all face en route to the top. And in Michael's situation, I mean, that was 100% predictable. And my sort of guess is that there's usually never a conversation while a person's evolving to his level of proficiency, that the discussion of, this is one layer of your life that will not carry you through the rest of your life, and we need to be considering life after this or building upon this. It's usually a conversation that's never considered in advance. I think that it should be, but it needs to be done delicately, because you don't want to discourage someone from high aspiration. But at the same time, you want to be real so they don't get blindsided by its reality once they're faced with what Michael did. And so if Michael were a client of mine, I would have certainly advised him in advance of what his life was going to be like once he got to who he became, which I've done with people that are performing in different disciplines at the level that Michael has. So I think it's a very important case study that we can all learn a lot from, and we can all use to our advantage.
Yeah. No. For some reason, that just popped up as you were talking about that last point. Yeah. So with your business, Jeff, do you mind explaining, what your business entails? Yes, you're a coach, but do you have books or programs online that your average person can subscribe to, or do you only work with, gold medalists, for example?
That's a great question. Actually, the Goal Achievement Roadmap, which is my program, I conduct workshops on that, and they're for everybody. because really learning to achieve your goals, it's really a learned skill. And it's a learned skill that people have not been taught. People are generally good at task completion, but not goal achievement. There are two different skills. So I conduct those several times a year, and the dates and locations of those are available on my website, which is www.drjeffspencer.com, DRJEFFSPENCER.com. That's where that information is available. For those people that would like to inquire just about some level of personal mentorship and becoming a full potential player, there is certainly an inquiry that can be made through my website as well. So that's kind of the state of the art at this time.
Cool. Yeah. And we'll put all that in the show notes, for
Thank
people.
you.
Yes. No, definitely. We'll definitely want to share this and put it out there so people
Thanks
can
so much.
reach out to you. And are you on social media as well?
Facebook,
Okay.
yes. And Twitter, absolutely yes.
Okay.
And so the answer to that is yes, yes, and more of yes, actually.
Okay. And we will find those and put those in the show notes as well so people can, I'm sure people are going to want to reach out to you and ask you questions and look into this program.
Yeah,
Before we go, I kind of wanted to touch on some things, applicable to my audience and, just out of curiosity, what does, currently your fitness look like? What does your nutrition look like? If you don't mind sharing some of your philosophies on that at your age. So
Yeah. Well, I'm Mr. Fitness. I'm actually going to go for a 2-hour bike ride when we're done with this. So
awesome.
I ride my bike every day, and that's obviously for cardio, and it's low impact. And, I do long, slow rides, and I do very high intensity interval rides. I'm 65. I don't know what that's supposed to look like.
Wow.
I've got a daughter who's going to be 18 on Saturday. So, and then I do Qigong every day.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
With, what's his name? From the Mastermind event?
No, but
okay.
I've actually done it for like 15 years, and I do it just because I understand the importance of creating a global ideal body tension and control of movement. I think is really an essential mainstay of anybody's health program. So I do that very religiously, and I eat, really well. I always have. Being an Olympian, I grew up eating well, and I've not strayed off the reservation, so to speak. So I drink my water, plenty of vegetables. I take vitamins. I don't overeat. I am very conscious of maintaining a healthy blood sugar level. I'm very vigilant about that because I want to be a good dad to my daughter, who's 18 now, and I'm 65. So she needs her dad to be able to bike ride with her and be a vital resource and participant in her life. And I really believe that as we get older, we start to learn a few things where we have the best chance to create the most significant number of successes to our legacy. But if we don't have the health to do the action steps, then we cannot complete and honor that potential. So I'm a big fan, fully committed to it. Health to me is the ultimate bridge between making our dreams real and having them die in our head as hopes. And there's to no extent that I won't go to preserve and maintain my health through regular proactive wellness exams and procedures, acupuncture, massage, chiropractic adjusting, all the things that infrared sauna, you name it, I kind of do it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's great information. So I had no idea you were 65. First of all, I thought you were in your 50.
I don't know what it's supposed to feel like or act like either.
Well, you look great, man. That's awesome. And the Qigong thing was very interesting because I've heard there was this guy named Tristan who has this school called Satori Method, who I'm going to have on my podcast as well. Open up that world to my audience because a lot of us think it's weird and it's not a Western culture. But to see people like you and him pushing it more mainstream, I think there's some real science behind it of how it can help people out in many ways.
Yeah, there really is. It's actually one of the best kept secrets that to me is non-negotiable as to whether or not it should be in your program.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to be introducing that to people here very soon.
So cool.
Infrared saunas, I'm a big fan of. HealthMate Sauna is a company that we have their infrared sauna. I don't know what brand you use, but I'm assuming they're all pretty similar.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, cool. I really appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure.
We're running out of time. One last question for you.
Uh-huh.
You've been an athlete your whole life, it sounds like. Has there ever been a point of time where you lost that discipline and maybe you fell out of shape for a period of time? And if so, how did you get out of that? Or have you always maintained this high level of discipline?
I've always made it a top priority for me. Ever since I rode my first bike on that 25-mile ride when I was 10, it's been a mainstay of my life. But I can honestly say that, periods of high intensity when I was going through chiropractic college and some of the other things that I've done that requires just an amazing amount of time and energy, I've always prioritized my health because I really felt that to be the person that I need to be to honor my life's privilege, the mainstay of that is my health. So I've always stayed vigorously engaged in it to, even keep my height, weigh as much as I do now as I did when I was in high school. But I just kind of grew up with it. Yeah. And I just, it's the way my path has been.
So what you're saying is that you would have a difficult time doing a fit to fat to fit journey, right?
It's actually one of the things I actually said to you when we first met. I said I admire that because the amount of credibility and trust that I have for you having that level of insight and being able to speak through the patient's or the person's experience, to me, there's nothing that says more to me about the quality of what you do and you as a person as having done that. To me, it's amazing. Congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I just think it's funny getting other people's perspective of like, okay, do you think you, when I did it, I was scared to death, but I was like, okay, I'm really doing this. But asking other people, it really is scary to, like you said, let your health go. Health is one of your biggest assets, and
absolutely
to let that go on purpose for 6 months was harder than I thought it would be. That's for sure. And I'm glad it's over. And it's always interesting to ask other people that. So. I wouldn't want to see you do it, to be honest with you, though, Jeff.
That's never going to happen. I just had a thought that if I could just share one last thought.
Sure. Yes, please do.
Being a healthcare provider myself, with a master's degree in sports science and the chiropractic deal, one thing I know about the body is that the body is amazingly forgiving, and the body will always adapt to whatever it's exposed to. And so whoever's listening, no matter what you may be thinking about your state of health or your aspirations and where you are and the road to where you'd like to be, just keep putting one foot in front of the other, because every moment counts and your body is so amazingly forgiving. It can always find a path back to better. It just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of effort. And I just encourage everybody to stay in the game, to be able to reap the rewards of better health and better fitness and better participation that you really richly deserve by honoring that process.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that, Jeff. And thank you so much for coming on, man. I learned so much. Sometimes I feel like I do this podcast for me, and I don't know if anyone else is listening. I don't know if anybody else is listening. I'm just kidding. But I really appreciate it. And we'll have all of your information in the show notes, and we'll have to have you back on again in the future.
I'd love that, Drew. Thanks again for your comment. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you guys once again for tuning in for another great episode here on the Fit to Fat to Fit Experience podcast. We always try and bring you diverse people on this show, so that you guys, it's not just the same thing. It's not just nutrition. It's not just fitness. There's so many different avenues out there to explore that will help you on your journey to, whether it's better health, whether it's to, more happiness in your life, whatever it is, we're here to help. So we try and bring on people like Dr. Jeff Spencer, who can help us in so many different ways other than just, fitness and nutrition. Anyways, I hope you guys found this episode valuable. Make sure and go check out on my website, you guys, fittofattofit.com. I have so many tools and resources for you guys. I have my meal plans, my workouts from my Fit to Fat to Fit journey. I have my book, which is a New York Times bestseller, which I don't know if you guys know about that, but if you haven't read my book and you're a follower of me, I really think you should check it out. Just go to Amazon and type in Fit to Fat to Fit book. You'll find it. It's there. It's a great, easy read. And also, you guys, I have an 8-week Spartan or Tough Mudder training program you guys can check out. I have a healthier fast food guide tells you what foods at certain fast food restaurants are healthier choices, ones that I would choose, and the macronutrient profile of all those options. Very easy to download ebook, very valuable. And then, of course, I do a lot of public speaking. So if you guys know of any corporations or universities that are looking for a speaker of some type, please reach out to me. I'd love to book that. I actually enjoy public speaking, and I do really well at it. I usually book 1 or 2 of these a month, and it's one of my favorite parts of my job. So feel free to reach out to me through my website, through social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Pinterest, YouTube are all at just Fit to Fat to Fit. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you guys back here next week for another great episode on the Fit to Fat to Fit Experience podcast.